All right, my friends, it is wonderful to be back together. And today we are going to be talking or start talking about. I remember we're going to talk about what I call Bitachon and Hishtadlus. Bitachon is trust in God, Hishtadlus is our effort. Though I remember I worked for 2 summers at Machne Moshava or Camp Moshava, and they had color war, and it was between two teams, Bitachon and Hishtadlut. And I was like scratching my head, saying, "Wait, this is Hebrew?" Or I was trying to like, where? What are these words? And then I started. So I translated it into Ashkenazi. I put it to Ashkenazi Hebrew. Well, you see, it's not even like an Israeli accent. It's like the Riverdale SAR accent. So, it's a different dialect. Okay. Anyway, that could also take me on a tangent, and we won't get to the learning. So let's get to the learning. So I was interested. This is a dichotomy in Jewish thought in general about to what degree should we be just simply putting our trust in God? To what degree do we have to actually put in effort? And we're going to look at a few case studies of this in Rav Moshe's writings. One is Kollel. I already gave a little bit of a preview of this on Shabbos, but obviously I'll try to go through the essentials again, and we didn't quite get into the depth of it. The other case study will be insurance policies. Now, the reason this title is clever in Hebrew is because bitachon is trust. And does anyone know how to say insurance in Hebrew? Insurance. Okay, well, that's how Ramosha writes it. Very good. Very good. Ramosha writes it as insurance. What? Bituach. Very good. Bituach. Yeah. It's the same charge. It's the same word. Yeah. So I wrote on the sheet that the topic is bitachon, bituach, v'hishtadlus. So it goes together really nicely, actually, in the Hebrew. And then we're going to talk about medical examinations. To what degree should we be taking what it was called those preemptive exams, diagnostics, preemptive diagnostics? Is that the right word for it, or yeah, screenings. That's it, screenings. Um, and then the article you see here in English is about faith during times of war. So my goal for tonight is to cover the Kollel and insurance, and then hopefully next week we'll cover the medical stuff and the times of war. All right, and like I always say, when I plan for a 2-part series, it inevitably becomes a 3 to 4 part, but we'll see what happens. Okay, my friends, do we know what Kollel is? Yeah, anyone define for you? Very good. This is why we need a why. Okay, so Kollel is basically you got a bunch of guys. They're in a base medrash in a study hall. They got books open, presumably, and they are learning all day, every day in the Kollel.
And it's sort of a graduate level or
yes. So what? So when high school is called Masifta, then post high school is called base medrash, and then when you get married, becomes Kollel, and you get apparently for some reason getting married bumps up your credentials. Don't ask me why it works that way. Yeah. It's I think eventually. So
It bumped
and,
up mine, Rabbi.
that was part of the criticism. The criticism I was making is like I'm not really sure why that's the demarcation point. You would think you got a master's degree or doctorate. I'm sure different places work in different ways, but the full life cycle where I was at Yeshiva Darchei Torah is that you go to the Mesivta, then you go to Beis Medrash for a few years, and then you go to Eretz Yisrael and you learn there, maybe at the Mir, maybe in Brisk. You come back, you learn in Lakewood, you come out of the freezer after a Zman, after a semester, you find a mate. That's what they call it, coming out of the freezer. Not to be confused with the closet, it's different. And then you find a mate. Then you come back to, if you follow the full trajectory, you return back to Darche, teach Limudei Kodesh, Judaic studies, maybe some secular studies in the afternoon to make an extra parnasa, and then you half retire and you learn and you teach Judaics in the morning and you learn the Kollel in the afternoon. Then you eventually fully retire to the Kollel full time, and then eventually after 120 years to the Kollel Darche and Shemayim. So you get the full life cycle over there, cradle to grave. So yeah, so that's what Kollel is essentially. You're learning now. This is a little bit niche, but even if you're not like in that world, you could probably still appreciate this. One of my favorite jokes about Kollel culture was it goes like this. I'll try to keep it bare bones. There's a yeshiva bacher, a guy learning yeshiva. So one day he dies. All right, he dies. So he goes up to the heavenly court, the Beis in Shamala. They say, oh, you're a relatively good guy, but you slipped up here and there, so we're going to send you down to hell for a little bit to Gehenna. So Yeshiva Bacher arrives in Gehenna. He's there for a few months. He has to do his time. So of course he goes to the Beis Medrash to Gehenna. He goes to the Beis Medrash over there to study, and I think everyone's forced into the study holes, my understanding. So he gets there. So I was always told by my Rebbeim that Gan Eden and Gehenna is the same place. It's all a big Beis Medrash. The question is, do you enjoy the learning or not? So that's the so he gets to Gehenna, and he comes in like 9:13 a.m. for the first study session, the first Seder. Already a little bit late, and so he starts learning. He idles away. At 9:43 a.m., he gets up to go make himself a coffee. He starts, heading to the back of the Beis Medrash to get out the doors, and all of a sudden appears in front of him is none other than the Satan, than Satan himself. And so the Satan says, "Where do you think you're going?" I need to make myself a coffee. I got to go to the coffee room so I can make a coffee, so I can come back and learn and have energy. So then the Satan lets out an evil cackle. Says, "Ha ha! In Gehenna, we bring the coffee to your seat." So the culture, the thing is, like, there's this whole coffee room culture where, I think in like any corporate workspace, the same thing. Like people waste a lot of time. Like,
Yeah.
so this is relevant because when we talk about Kollel, Ramosha is going to distinguish between, well, are you actually making the most of your time while you're in Kollel? So, okay, well, we'll come back to that point in a moment. Rambam writes, good old Maimonides, source number 1. In the laws of Torah study, Kol hamisim alibo sheyasuk b'Torah v'lo yasim malacha v'yisparnitz min tzedakah. If you decide, hey, hakuna matata, I don't need to work. It's a real word. I was my friend Murtaza, who knows, I think, Swahili or whatever. He's from Eastern Africa. It actually means no worries. It's a real thing. It wasn't just made up for the Lion King. Because I joked one time. I said, he's like, that actually means what it means. I said, oh, okay, there we go. So it's a good thing to engage with other cultures. So Rambam says, you want to sakuna matata and say, I'm not going to work. I'll let the community support me with tzedakah money, and I'm just going to learn all day. How do you think Rambam feels about such people?
Not good.
He has defiled God and his Torah. The chava mo'or hadas. He has extinguished the flame of our religion. V'goram ro'latzmo. He's brought evil upon himself. V'notol chayav mina olam haba. And he has taken his life out from the world to come.
Did they teach that in yeshiva?
Oh, well, Ramosh is going to have to contend with this in just a moment. Now, Rambam, the next halacha, he doesn't contradict himself, but he softens his stance. He says, Maila gedola, it's a good thing. He lamishu who misparis b'maisa yadav, to make your own money. Umidas chasim rishonim he. So now all of a sudden he's like walking back over here. It's like sometimes it's like politicians, Lahavdil. So when they're in the primaries, they have to go like really extreme to get the party vote and say, "Oh, I'm a fundamentally, super on one extreme or the other." So that way they get, and then once they get into the primary, once they're the candidate, then all of a sudden they have to start, moderating themselves for the general electorate. So obviously that's not what Rambam's doing, but that's what it feels like over here. And he's like, it's a good idea. You should make your own money. You should rely on others. That's a lot different than, you're destroying the Torah and extinguishing the flame of our religion, and you have no place and portion of the world to come. Two very different ways. It's a difference between the sermons I grew up on and the sermons that we were told we were supposed to give. Sermons I grew up on, the Rebbeim would get up there, you give a clap of the people, Rabbi Say, and then they insert whatever they thought we were doing wrong, or Rabbi Say, you have to get rid of the internet from your house. If you have computers in your house, your mouth's going to burn and get ahead of them for thousands. So they rip out they really lace into you. And nowadays, all of us young millennial modern Orthodox rabbis say, hey guys, there's this thing called the Torah. Yeah, there's some commandments. Might be a good idea to do a few of them every now and then, but no worries, we're not judging. So that's a very different. That's what So all of a sudden the Rambam changed from like a hardcore Haredi Rav to a young modern Orthodox rabbi, but just between one halacha and the other, what changed? So this is where we come to Rav Moshe Paitzi now. So Rav Moshe picks up on this difference, as do many, and he says this is the distinction. Rambam is talking about a certain kind of Kollel guy. He's not talking about the Kollel guy who's there, at 9 a.m. or probably much earlier than 9 a.m. to be honest, and he's like learning before davening, learning after davening, and he doesn't go out for the coffee break. Rambam's talking about somebody who, if you give him 12 hours of the day, he will learn all 12 hours of the day with the same quality, versus somebody who, like myself, you give me 2 hours, you give me 12 hours, I will get the same amount of work done. So that's why I try to organize my day, into, you ever see those like Google or Outlook calendars, you have your 30-minute increments, your hour increments. So I try to divide my day like that, because I'm like, if I just give myself 30 minutes, I'm going to get the same amount of work done if I focus in those 30 minutes, rather if I know I have 2 hours to relax and to do it slowly. It's time. Is that what it's called? Is the term?
Oh, yeah. I like it. Yeah, it's called time boxing.
Thank you. It's good. We got some corporate experience over here to the lingo. By the way, I'm making an official a protest. I want to ban the word empowerment from all community discourse and apparently, look, you want to go get coffee with the gals? That's great. You don't have to say I'm empowered. Just say I feel so empowered getting coffee with my friend. You get coffee with your friends. It's great. It's unempowering. And so anyway, I'm not sure how I got over there, but yeah, corporate terms. Yeah. For some reason, everything is empowerment. Okay. So Ramosha said, I'll read some of the language. This is bolded on the left side. He says, unlike the Rambam, who said that it was a chila Hashem, a desecration of God, he says, Ein locha kiddush shem shamayim. Now, kiddush isn't just the thing that we eat on right? Kiddush committee, right? Kiddush is the sanctification, right? We sanctify through the food that Sandy, Marcia, and Eileen, and anyone else. Amy, are you part of it? Or
I used to be.
Oh, okay, all right. So right. So I'm still traumatized from that first week when I gave the shout out to the sisterhood instead of the Kiddush committee, and I didn't realize there were two separate entities. I think everyone else forgot about it, but I didn't let myself down on that one. Yeah. Anyway, the Imkain Vade Bar. Oh, so sorry. He says it's not a Chil Hashem. It's a Kiddush Hashem, a sanctification of God's name. Shemisvaza litol tzedakah b'chtei shielo avshir slamo Torah. Wow, this guy is willing to live a simple, bare bones life where he's even willing to take money from tzedakah in order so that he can learn Torah all day. Wow, beautiful. So what does he do with the Rambam? Right, Rambam sounded pretty adamant against that, at least in the first halacha. So the second paragraph here, V'rak b'misho lo yikshalo limuda b'shel ezo shosh yas malacha. We're talking about, depends on different kinds of people we're talking about over here. There's some people, again, I put myself in that category, right? The time boxing. There's only so much time that my mind can handle sitting down and reading a book in one day. So, I can do my administrative work. I can do all the other million kind of things that fall within my purview, and I have time for learning and reading. I have time for answering emails. I never seem to get through all of them, but I try my best. And all the other things that we do, gewaldig in the community. So that's different than someone who, if you give him all that time, he's going to continue learning with the same quality no matter what. That's Ramosha's distinction. And the truth is, most people, you give them those 12 hours, there's a chance they might be hanging out in the coffee room a little bit more. So the question is everyone who's in Kollel really supposed to be in Kollel? Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember there were some guys when I was at YU, they weren't sure yet what they wanted to do with life, so they went to Smicha. I mean, you're learning. Smicha, by the way, is you're just learning for the most part. On Fridays in the morning for an hour or two, once a week, you take vocational courses. But in the end of the day, I mean, you're learning Shulchan Aruch, you're learning Gemara, you're learning Yosef Kalim, the commentaries. So, I mean, some people they're applying for law school, so they'll say, "I'll do smicha." Well, I'll apply. It's a good way to, it's not a bad way to waste time. Is learning your day. Why not?
For a law school also.
Yeah, it's very easy for law school. Also,
Really nice.
especially if you go to the Choshei Mishpah Kollel but that's Yad and Yadin level. That's when you're done with your you go to Yad and
I
Yadin.
said the best students in her class were guys that were yeshiva, but they went to yeshiva. They learned how to argue.
Yeah, Laura, you can confirm.
More or less.
I figure she's right here, so we can ask for corroboration. So Rambam writes, "Possessed over a Rambam she'asur l'sparis min tzedakah." Somebody that he's going to be able to learn with the same quality, whether if you give him 12 hours or 2 hours, that's a person that we're wasting money on. Let him go work then. Let him make good use of his time. So very few people, arguably, qualify for this. And and that's the thing also. I should really say this for the wrap up, but I'll say it now. I'm preaching to the choir here. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not either you're learning or you're not learning. You can have your day job or whatever you do during the day, and we're all literally sitting here right now learning together. So it's not a zero-sum game. There's a good Rav Moshe at the end in his drushos where he talks about it's not necessarily about just the time I'm spending. It's about how Bittul Torah. It's about how I orient myself throughout the day. But we'll take a look at it. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. Now, so I'll read over here also. He writes at next page number 2. He writes, "V'chein im kishronosav nemuchem." Let's say the person is not at the top of his class. Based on how people evaluate him, based on his teacher's evaluation. He's not gonna, if he stops learning Kollel full time, he's still gonna learn with the same quality one way or the other. So he should do what he needs for him and his household. There it would be forbidden for him to take from the charity fund. And that's what the Rambam's talking about. We could argue whether it's a persuasive reading of the Rambam, but Rav Moshe manages to make things work out. Now, here's a few limitations that Rav Moshe puts on the Kollel lifestyle. Number 1, this one's a little bit more neutral. Rambam, right, back to our good friend Maimonides, he writes that Misha Nasa Libo, this is Ostal, the fourth source on page 3. Misha Nasa Libo Lekai Mitzvah Zo Karaoi, Lios Muchter Becheser Torah. Then he starts using language saying, someone who wants to study Torah and have the crown of Torah upon him, kind of looking for the extra credit, or do, the premium. I always go to the gas station. You have the regular and then there's premium. I think only certain trucks. I'm not really sure what. Yeah, I don't know, but apparently there's like super and premium.
Premium is higher octane fuel.
Okay, so I don't know what that practically means, but I always go for regular. That's all I should be doing, right?
For special vehicles.
I know.
Some cars don't run that regular.
Exactly. I thought I was just being a cheap Jew, but okay.
I think Jordan's out even. So you're paying
A lot
50,
more money.
60, 70 cents a gallon
A lot
more.
more money.
Well, anyway, that's what Rambam's saying. The Rambam's saying is if you want to drive the Audi of quality of Talmud Torah, you want to wear the crown and get the premium or super deluxe grade, whatever, the high octane, nitro fuel level. So then, maybe this is the kind of lifestyle that one lives, in which he describes based on the Mishnah and Avos. Kachi darcha shel Torah. This is the way of Torah. Pas b'melach tochal b'mayim mishra tishda. You're just like eating and drinking the bare minimum of what you can have. You sleep on the ground. V'chayit sar tichya, and you live a life of like anguish. U'b'torah ta'amal, but the one thing you do is that you toil in Torah. And v'lo lecha davar ligmor v'lata ben chorlim vatal. He's tying in Pirkei Avos over here, number of Mishnayos. And this is you're a slave to the Torah, but the only true freedom is the freedom of Torah. So there's You look, I think famously, or iconically, I should say. I should never say the word famously, I'm told. Iconically, in Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky's apartment, it was the most bare bones thing you could possibly find. I got a kick out of it when they put out the art scroll book on Rebbetzin Kanievsky. So the front of the page is just the apartment. That was the they may have pictures of her in there, but at least the front cover was just the picture of the apartment. Um, okay, so why did I bring this up? Because Ramosha writes, we see from Rambam, Nemar Balashon Chashivas. Rambam is not talking about obligations. He's saying is for certain very unique subset of the Jewish people, there is this thing called Kollel, in which you're living a very, very basic, bare bones lifestyle, but it's certainly not for everyone. I should say, by the way, I should pause over here because people in the non-Orthodox community love to hate on the yeshivish world for doing Kollel. I should just say, even in the non-Orthodox world, we have this idea of yeshiva students post-high school learning in Israel for 1 to 2 years. So it seems to be everyone agrees that there is some value to taking off time for learning. We might just have different opinions as to where to draw the line. Most people, even if they learn in Kollel, it doesn't mean they're learning Kollel all their life. Or it might mean that they have a day job and they find time to learn Kollel in the evening. So these aren't zero-sum kind of scenarios over here.
I want to say this is a huge with drafting.
Yeah, I was waiting for someone to bring that up.
So it's half the country or a portion of the country. I'll leave it at a percentage, but a portion of the country. I don't know if it is, but a portion of the country feels that they're wasting their time. They, have a draft deferment.
Yeah.
With the bogus plus. For those who remember Vietnam and the draft,
yeah,
the same thing. But it's a little different going to Vietnam versus defending the country.
The rabbis are way dead set against it.
Yeah. So it's a big.
But that lies at the crux of it. You see, one might choose to frame it as, this is different than Vietnam because this is a religious obligation. If you're going to make this hinge on religion, you got a lot of people who are very committed to religion who will say, no, this is, we're going to do a whole shiur, by the way, on Rav Moshe and Zion. We have a whole shiur on Rav Moshe and Zionism coming up, by the way.
When you listen to the news, the non-religious stations, they're all just sitting there goofing off. And
this is my argument. My argument basically is that, you go to Mea Shearim, you go to Gula, there's like a lot of guys who are just like bumming around and like, it's not even their fault. They're just in a system that doesn't, some people are more bookish and better at sitting down learning all day. Like even in non-religious context, like some people go into academia, some people go into research, some people that's just kind of what they have an innate drive for. Some people they work better with their hands and woodworking and electricity, whatever it might be. So the issue is they don't really have that outlet. Something nice that they do actually at Darche, where I went to, they have a vocational program. So they actually teach some students who opt into it a trade. So it's actually
a great idea.
Yeah. The only issue is now the yeshivas just have to make it affordable for those who take those professions to be able to send their kids.
I was in Israel one year where at one time, you got a certain subsidy for every child you had. And like that year, they changed to just 4 kids. And suddenly millions of yeshiva families, the man had to go find a job.
Yeah.
And often they couldn't spell, they couldn't do arithmetic.
It's a difference between the men and women in the Haredi community. The women tend to learn because this comes back to the issue of Bittul Torah. Something very remarkable that I had in my education. Got me a little anxious, honestly, at a certain point, is that you hear a lot about Bittul Torah, not squandering time doing meaningless things. So this was a good Super Bowl drasha. Basically, there's a minhag, there's a custom in the yeshiva world that before Super Bowl, the rabbi gets up there and he rails against the Super Bowl. Saying, why do you want to watch this? It's just a bunch of wilde chayas, a bunch of animals who are like concussing each other. They have a good point actually about that. So anyway, I always love this because I was always like a sci-fi fantasy nerd. Like I'd rather watch Lord of the Rings during that time. So when they're like railing against the Super Bowl, it's like, yeah, I'm with you, but like not because it was anti-pop culture. I was just like, not into the sports. But the whole point is that there's this real awareness of not wasting one's time and taking every bit of time into account. So that's kind of what's behind here as well. So okay, just back to the caveats over here. Another one is that if we look at Osva very briefly, Rav Moshe, I'm sorry, for those who are listening on the audio, some people are going to be listening on YU Torah afterwards. They're not going to know all the sources. Okay, those listening on YU Torah, I'm talking directly to you. I have the source material. You can email me at rabbi@sonsofisrael.net, and I can send you the makars if you don't have them. Okay, great. I just broke the fourth wall over there. You saw that? Someone on YU Torah is going to be like, "Oh my God, the character just talked to me." You remember that, like in the movies where they break the. So that's what it was like. Okay, so Osvav over here in Igros Moshe. Yerdeach Yalakesim Lama Gimel Osvav. He quotes the Gemara of Basra, in which Rebbe expressed dismay that he had given bread to someone who is, ignorant of Torah, as opposed to giving to a Torah scholar. The point being here, what comes out from this Gemara, the upshot is that it is preferable to support a Torah scholar over a non-Torah scholar, again, if it's a zero-sum game. By the way, we might be doing this soon. One of the next topics we'll do, if not the next one, is Rav Moshe on tzedakah, on charity. And I've been very interested in this question of kadimos, of precedence in tzedakah. So one kind of precedence is people, like what kind of people or groups of people are more worthy or just simply more urgent, or how do we rank what are more urgent forms of tzedakah? So I'm more interested geographically as to where do you put your money first? You can imagine.
With the needs of your family.
So, yeah, you were there between Chlamar where I gave you a little bit of a preview. That's right. So the Medrash says that you start with yourself, Bnei Beso, your family, then you move to your community, and then beyond your community, right? But then Eretz Yisrael takes priority over Chutz La'aretz, over Jews in a diaspora. But then the question is, does it mean your own city, or does it mean just a random city like Paris versus Yerushalayim? So we'll talk about that, God willing. And it has huge implications for the way we give out tzedakah today. I go into this with a certain bias because I'm a big believer on you got to put on the mask first before you put a mask on someone else. It's like even in a non-Jewish world, people are running to Africa so that they can build huts over there. Like this mamish, like, I don't know, like hundreds of homeless people here in Allentown. And you don't need to go to Africa to go build huts. There's need for housing right over here in America. So what the implications are vis-a-vis sending it abroad to other countries. Anyway, okay. But what was that time box? We'll box that one. We'll time box it. I used that incorrectly, I know. So Rav Moshe says, even though a Torah scholar takes priority, there's different kinds of Torah scholars. So if you look at the next shuv over here, in the Yordecha Gimel Siman Tzadi Dalid, and Osai turns onto page 3. Excuse me. Rav Moshe says, so the question is, do we give money to support Tinoko Shel Beis Rabban, children who are studying in yeshiva? When I say yeshiva here, I mean like yeshiva day school, as opposed to post high school yeshiva. And he says a Torah scholar would take priority over them, but only a very specific kind of Torah scholar, one who is gedolim shehu lahora, those who are able to paskin halacha, who are able to rule on halachic matters. Because many people go to Kollel, but they're not necessarily studying what we call aliba de hilchasa. They're not necessarily studying in order to provide halachic rulings. So, of course, we believe studying Torah creates some sort of metaphysical merit for the community that's a little bit more nebulous, but actually training somebody that they can answer shilas, that they can answer questions and paskin, and they can serve on a beis din, they can judge, they can adjudicate matters. That is a more concrete public service. So another distinction here is Rav Moshe, even within the Kollel discussion, he might place more of a premium on those who are studying in order to paskin halacha. Now here's the thing also, methodologically, Rav Moshe believed they were one and the same. Rav Moshe believed that if you study your Torah, your Talmud well enough, you will be able to reach a halachic conclusion. You have to be able to reach a halachic conclusion from it. And if you can't, you didn't learn it well enough. Many times in yeshiva high schools even. You'll have a Gemara class and you'll have a halacha class. And to him, at least he argued, they have to be one and the same. You got to actually study the Talmud and the commentators and the codes and their commentaries and all these different kinds of books to then arrive at the halachic conclusion. So the analysis that we see, especially in the earlier volumes of the Igros Moshe, his responsa, is very similar to the kind of analysis you'll see in the Dibros Moshe, which are his discourses on the Talmud, which, by the way, he valued those more so than he valued the Igros Moshe, even though the Igros Moshe he's more famous for. Because when you think about it, the Igros Moshe, I mean, there's amazing, remarkable things in here that we're learning, but his true prowess really is demonstrated in the Dibros Moshe. And, I am not to be compared to Ramosha in any stretch of the imagination. Like, no, really, I'm not doing this in humility. Like, oh, yeah, okay. I hope I don't look like him yet. I don't know, maybe in a few more decades, who knows?
Just kidding.
But it's like, it's like sometimes I feel like the difference between what I get to do here versus what I get to do at the city hall. Last night I got to go. Harry did a great job taking photos. Thank you for coming, keeping me company. So I gave an invocation, and people were like, oh wow, so nice, so nice. Said, yeah, I mean, like, it's cute. It's like a nice invocation. I tied in a few sources, but like this is the real stuff. So Lahav Delaf Alpi Avdelos, Ramosha's probably like, yeah, I wrote a tshuva, whatever. That's nice. But, really being able to study the Talmud and really get it, under the hood. I mean, that's really what we live for. So, that's, we always have to keep our priorities straight. Okay. I'm speaking to myself. I know. So Ramosha, okay. One last caveat. Then we'll close up this section. Ramosha says, everything we've been talking about right now is, think about a guy who is single, right? He only has to worry about himself. So he can decide and say, I'm going to live a life of eating just very simple food, simple, just water, not even good water. It's going to be like Allentown water without the water softener in it. I can live a very simple, maybe not so healthy life. However, the lo kisheyesh lo isha shechai b'mezono sek kishlo diabetes ratzis. However, we have to make sure that if he gets married, that his wife consents to such a lifestyle. Now, during Shidduchim, that young woman will say, I want a learning boy or an earning boy. Apparently, that's the lingo that they use. So, okay, they go in, but let's say she signed up for an earning boy, and then he decides, I want to learn in Kollel. Well, she didn't necessarily consent to that kind of lifestyle. Moreover, and that only works for a little bit until Mirza Hashem, they have children. But when you have, God willing, children, son, who gave you the right to make them make them and force them to such a lifestyle? So this is a question also, like, who says that they can't consent to it? They weren't around then when you decide to live that. So that's an important thing as well. So there we go. And not two last little tidbits. This comes from Rishumei Aaron, of Aaron Felder's recollections from his Rebbe, Ramosha Feinstein. So I'll read for you. This is actually kind of amusing. Pami Gia Harav Goren, the Daber Basifa America. Right? So Rav Goren from Israel, out of the military rabbinate of the IDF. I think he was a chief rabbi. Also was a chief rabbi. Did a lot of stuff. He had a lot of controversial rulings, and that's putting it lightly. We'll talk about him when we talk about Kohanim going to medical school.
I'll talk about him in no second day yunter.
Yeah, or second breakfast either.
That was his big thing.
Yeah, I get a lot, and then also arguably permitted some mamzerim, Ramosha held as well. So he did a lot of interesting things. So one time he came to America. The Agudas Harabanim, right? The Agudas Harabanim. This is like the gathering of all of the Haredi Rabbanim. Hotzia Michtav Negdo she'asu b'shum ofen laleches l'shmoas dvarav. The Agudas Harabanim, which Ramosha Feinstein was part of, and eventually I believe became the leader of, they put out a letter forbidding people to attend this gathering. V'nei Rav echad shel kehila modernis. You know what modernis is? Yeah, he says a rabbi of a modern congregation. Iskasher Lorraine Rabbeinu itself. So he calls up Ramosha Feinstein. V'shal who yachol aleches. And he asks, can I go? Since all of his congregants expect him to go with them. Ba'adalo, and he answers, and the Ramosha answers him, Shu yachol aleches, that for him, he's allowed to go, because his livelihood is contingent on doing so. Otherwise, the board will fire him or something if he doesn't go see Rav Goren. And then in another, in volume, that was from also in volume 1, a few pages earlier, he writes, Bizdamus Acheres, on another occasion, so I got a gig to teach a class and make some money. But I didn't want to give a shear at the same time that Ramosha Feinstein was giving a shear, because then it looks chutzpahdik that I'm trying to schedule something the same time he is, right? Apparently, they didn't have the Federation calendar beforehand, where I could see where all the shear were taking. Yeah, okay, well, we'll leave it at that. Therefore, I asked Rav Moshe, what should I do? And he answered me in the following language, open quote, certainly you should go. Ki efo kosov she'avrech Kollel aser shetielo parnasa. Where does it say that a guy learning in Kollel shouldn't be able to make money? So the anecdotes sometimes, add a little flavor to what you see in the chuvas. I got a kick out of that one. Let's see. Do we still have a few minutes to cover the insurance, or are people? Yeah, I'll try. Okay, I'll try to do with less stories and such. Okay, so Eileen, remember I asked you guys how to say insurance in Hebrew, right? There's your word. So if you look at page 3, guys, Osirav in the italics says be'inyan insurance. Okay, so does this demonstrate a lack of faith in God, right? Because think about it. What is insurance? Insurance is saying is, well, on the chance that my car gets totaled, then the insurance will pay out. Or, if I have to go for surgery, but then you pay $1 million in deductibles anyway, so I don't know what it does for you, but I'll save my commentary for later. So Ramosha says, he actually says it, the full thing. I bolded it. A few lines down. Insurance policy. By the way, my friends, this will be on the Jeopardy test. Eventually, once we do enough of these shiurim together, I have a Jeopardy ready to go. So we're going to do a game night, which I will come and we'll do Jeopardy. And you guys will, and it's great. You just have to sound it out. It'll be a lot of fun. So so he says, not only is it permissible, but arguably he says one should be taking out insurance for necessary items. He says, first of all, there's a principle. He quotes the Gemara in Brachos, in Somchin al Hanes. It's forbidden to rely on a miracle. We have to put in basic effort.
That's a story about Nakshan.
Yeah. Where he goes into the sea.
To the sea.
Right. He's the first guy who jumps in Nachshon ben Aminadav. Right. He jumps into the sea, and because the water hadn't split yet, he said, I'm going to do my part, and then the water splits. There's a number of narratives in the Torah. Yosef is a big one, because Yosef asks the wine guy to remember him, and seemingly that was a bad thing that he did. But the question is, I don't get it. Like, he did his Hishtadlus, he still believed in God. So there's a whole discussion over there about Yosef. I put it in a footnote at the end because I'll take us too far afield. But the Chazon Ish talks about it. Many people, Beis Halevi, many people talk about it. And then turning the page to quote whatever his name is, the Silver Bullet Band. You know what I'm talking about. Bob Seger. Turn the page. Bob Seger, Silver Bullet Band. Turn the page. No? Okay, I don't know if that was a wasted reference.
Yeah.
And the next book I'm going to work on is going to be a coffee table book of classic rock Divrei Torah. Like 50 top classic rock songs with short little Divrei Torah, attached to. It'd be like a good coffee table kind of thing, right? Okay, but I promised myself I wouldn't get too far afield. So he says, Pim Kane, this is page 4 in the bold. It's forbidden for me to just kick back on my recliner and say, God will provide. It's a little bit of we have to hold two things at the same time. I can't just sit back in my recliner and say God will provide, but at the same time I have to also know that any money I get is because God is providing. God just provides, but you have to meet him in the middle. We have to put in a little effort, and then God takes it from there. So then, if we he talks about a few other Mamari Chazal. He brings in the Mishnah with Rabbi Nehorai, I believe. Yeah, Rabbi Nehorai, who said, I'm only going to teach my kid Torah. He says, well, that was only at a young age. He only taught his kid Torah, but as his kid got older, he taught him a trade. I mean, here's the thing, education back then is different than it is today. Today, you have to get a secular studies and all these different subjects and take exams. Back then, it just meant learn a trade. It was even like being a doctor back then. Think about all the years of pre-med and medical school and residencies and rotations. I don't even know the difference between all these different things, but I have to learn these terms because I'm trying to work with St. Luke so we can recruit more Jewish Orthodox doctors to town. That's something we're working on right now. So I have to learn what's the difference between residency and rotation. I still don't know what the difference is. But Ramosha actually talks about it in a separate shir that we'll get to on secular studies, where he says there's a big difference between what it meant to be a doctor back then and what it means to be a doctor today. And so at the end, basically, to make a long story short, go to page 5. He writes that taking out an insurance policy is a maisa parnasa. It is an act of it's the same thing fundamentally as making a living. The same reason it's responsible to wake up, to go to work, to get a paycheck, is the same logic in insurance, is that certain things are it's simply responsible to take out an insurance policy for. And to not do so is a dereliction of responsibility. And he says, toward the end of the tshuva, v'cheinu b'insurance shel sreifa ugeneva v'insurance shel hakar. There's another one, shel hakars. Car insurance, medical insurance, home insurance, that's what he's referring to, I believe. Excuse me. So that's what he says. And then he reiterates himself in a later tshuva, Igros Moshe Rechaim Chelek Daled. But without getting into all the details, here's some English. Look at page 6. It's the Kenach Yomer Lach. It says Ramosha Feinstein held, Shekadai Liknos Bituach Refuah. It is worth getting medical insurance. Again, I don't know, with premiums going up and deductibles going up, consult your local Orthodox, whatever, you know what I mean. Don't consult me, basically. So there you have it. Interesting. On the one hand, we have the Kollel discussion, we have the insurance discussion, and Ramosha seems to, in the insurance discussion, certainly is pro the Hishtadlus. He says one should take out insurance. In the Kollel thing, he says it depends on the person, but he leaves open the possibility that for the right guy to rely on Hashem, rely on community charity, it is appropriate for some people to take on such a lifestyle. But where things are going to get really interesting is next week, God willing, at 5:15 p.m. As we decided, we're going to be talking about medical screenings, where he seems to go actually on the little spoil a little bit. He kind of goes to the other extreme. We're going to talk about Tay-Sachs screening and other kinds of screenings, where he's very much opposed to anything that is not 100% absolutely necessary. And he's going to root it actually in the pasuk of Tamim Tiyeh im Hashem Elokecha, of being complete and faithful with God. So it's going to make it for a good contrast, because even though right now Ramosha seems to say, yeah, get the insurance, you have to put in your effort, even though you have faith in God, we're going to see that he's going to walk things back a little bit when we get to the medical stuff. And it'll be interesting when we get to the military stuff as well. So we may very well be able to complete this all. Who knows? I don't want to jinx myself, maybe even in 2 sessions. All right, Shakach, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.